Hey guys, Henning and Morten from Flip Normals, and this video is going to be a very interesting video. We're going to talk about motivation, and it's a question that we've been getting a lot, both on our Discord and our comments. We've had personal emails sent about this topic specifically, so it's something we've been thinking about talking about for a while. We've made a bunch of notes, sort of tried to distill our thoughts into a little document. And we're just gonna try and take you through the process of how we stay motivated, sort of what we have been doing in order to keep on track throughout in our careers and the kind of work that we do, and hopefully some of this can apply to you guys as well and help you along there.
It's been an incredibly hard video to actually get prepped for.
Yeah.
Just because it's kind of like when we started teaching sculpting as well. You've just been doing it for 10 years, and now you got to actually find the way you're doing it.
Yeah.
There isn't really a method to it. You're just kind of doing it. But now you've got to figure out a way to do it. Same one here with motivation. It's just something we just kind of been doing.
Yeah, and I don't... my biggest problem with, let's say, these kinds of videos is that I don't want it to turn into this pseudo-inspirational bullshit about like, oh, you just got to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and you just got to do this thing and blah, blah, blah. Like all these like things that I think a lot of the issues I have with all this is that people tend to look for a method. And there's so many, like you look on LinkedIn, there's like 10 supposedly CEOs in air quotation marks here that are saying that this is the road to success, but they don't really have success. And all this like, you have to surround yourself with failure all the time. And like, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there from people that are just trying to sell you something.
This is a free video. We have no agenda here.
Except for the money that we make on ads.
Yeah, like click on our ads, people.
Oh, damn. Okay, now there's an incentive to make money.
We just tainted it, didn't we? Yeah, but we'll try to just distill the bullshit, because I feel motivation might be probably the area with the biggest bullshit there possibly is. Yeah, like. It is the whole LinkedIn thing, or the CEO on Twitter, which has all these like motivational stuff. You definitely got to wake up at 5. You got to take a swim in the lake. Eat only berries.
Yeah, but you see it so often with the people where they have. I think we talked about it. It's the whole might offend a lot of people, but the people on Facebook, let's say Facebook or LinkedIn, that post motivational like images with text or whatever are never the people who are successful themselves. Because why would, I mean, it's like, has anyone ever read, do they actually read the posts that they make themselves? With it's like, I can't even think of them because they're just so stupid most of the time. Yeah,
this video here is not going to be... You aren't going to be able to put this on a t-shirt.
No.
It's a complex issue which deals essentially with human psychology and how to trick your brain into doing something that it doesn't really want to. Your brain wants to just chill out and survive. Now you're going to be like, you got to work really hard. And your brain is like, but I don't want to do that.
It's like the whole universe thing is looking for equilibrium. Everything in the universe just wants to be great.
Yeah.
You know? And then your brain is the same. Your brain doesn't want to do hard work.
No, what earth would it do that?
It spends more energy. You're not designed to do...
Nitty-gritty stuff here. We're just got to define some terminology here, because the terminology here is all over the place. Motivation. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like, so we have 3 terms here which we are going to at night, and you're like, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to start going to the gym, or you're an art station and you're just looking at some awesome stuff and you're like, I'm going to start doing some painting right away.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. That's an awesome burst of inspiration to have. But it's not enough by itself. And then we have discipline. Discipline is what I think is the most important thing here. It is consistently doing the hard work. It is doing the thing when you don't want to do the thing.
Yeah, like, because it's easy to do something when you enjoy it. You know, like we were just talking about this before, like, you know, you're going to the gym and you wake up, you're well rested, and you're just like, man, I just really want to do crunches today. Then you don't need discipline. Because then you're like, you're automatically in there. Your mindset is just, let's do it. It is the days where you wake up and you go, it's raining, there's a hurt.
The reason you have the discipline, like, you shouldn't just have discipline to have discipline. You need to have like a goal with this. This is the one which is a bit hard to define, but it's kind of like dealing of sculpting. You want to become better at it. It's kind of like having a long-term goal.
Yeah, exactly. take whatever goals that people have and then they try to sell them a program of motivation to other people and stuff. So it's like, that's why this subject is trying to sort of figure out the best way to approach this. And for me personally, I don't know. Like, honestly, like, if it just on the spot and I had to come up with, what's your motivation? Why are you doing this? I'd be like, I don't know. I've been doing this for the last, it's just so ingrained in me now that I can't remember a time.
Stay motivated. Like, that's actually really tricky. So we had to talk long and hard just to be able to get back to the believe in yourself. But that's not really that to actually talk about.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Let's actually start to get into some stuff here. So one of the things a lot of people ask us is, then you're fine. Once the wheels are going here, how do you actually get started? How do you form habits here? How do you get started with art, and how do you just keep it going? I think
it can be boiled down to some super simple things where instead, we talked about that with it's like a couple years ago with like someone who was 42 and let's say they were 42 and they're like, oh man, I don't have an education, but I really want to be an engineer. And so let's say the engineer thing, it took 4 years. I don't know how long it takes, but let's say 4 years. We're like, okay, I can either be 46, which is math, yes. I can either be 46 and not be an engineer, or I can start my engineer degree and be 46 with an engineer degree.
That thinking changed my life. This was a Reddit post, and it was talking about that. It was about what the most motivational thing they've heard, and that is really it. And in this case, he doesn't wake up every day and be like, man, I really want to become an engineer, and just doing like little bursts of motivation here, inspiration. In this case, it was hard work.
Yeah.
But I really think that changed the way I was thinking about it. Like, I'm going to be starting like martial arts now fairly soon, in like a few hours, and then it's like in a few years, I could become pretty proficient at it, or I could not be. It was the same with CG as well. When we started out, it was like a few years, I could become pretty good at CG, pretty good at drawing, sculpting, or I could not. And the not part wasn't an option for me. Then if you could replace with something else, let's say it is, I could become a really good sculptor, or I mean, whatever it is, it could be drawing or good at languages or whatnot. If it is between becoming a good sculptor or taking care of your family, I mean, then it's a different thing here. But if it's between becoming a good sculptor or nothing else,
I think that sort of the thing about age, like, you'll be 30, 40, 50 at some point anyway.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. Do you want to get to that point and not have achieved what you wanted to achieve? Because you were just too lazy to start it?
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well try.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you find out it's not for you, or you find out it's too hard. You don't really feel like you have the skills for whatever, but at least then you tried and you figured out you didn't like it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's funny with age, because there are some people who's like in their 60s and they're like, should I be trying it? Because maybe they have 10 years of their professional life left. And that is like, all right, you are getting into a more advanced age here. But most of the people who ask me that, they're like 21. What are you talking about? In the US, you've been able to drink for like a few months.
Yeah.
Like, you can always start. You can always do this. But particularly, I know most of our audience is in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
At that point, you are super young.
Yeah.
You can do anything. It takes a few years of hard work to get up to a certain level. But that means that in a few years, you are at that level. I mean, in order to go from 0 to a level in particularly sculpting here, where you can do something adequate, maybe you're talking 2 years of determined sculpting. If you're 21, you're 23, nobody cares. You look the same. You're the same person.
Yeah.
It's insane to me. Just the whole thing of, you are now 21 in 4 years. You'll be 4 years older, but you can just have the skills, or you cannot have the skills. Yeah. Completely changed the way I've been thinking about stuff.
Yeah, there was a guy that messaged me the other day as well. Not so much about motivation, but just in terms of acquiring skills, which I think is relatable. He was talking about, applying for a school and doing a course online. And this course was like a drawing course advertised for beginners. And he was like, okay, yeah, I'll sign up for that. He has no drawing experience whatsoever, as far as I could understand. And then he realized he actually needed some sort of fundamentals for this drawing course, and messaged me and was like, okay, so do you think it's feasible that I can learn the fundamentals of drawing if I do 10 hours a day for a week? No, that's impossible. Like, because the thing about, so especially, it doesn't matter if it's art or if it's, I don't know, use engineering again or whatever. Yeah. There's so many concepts that you have to learn within a field or an industry or something that just, it's repeated exposure over long periods of time, like consistent exposure again and again. And then you start to get like, when he asked me, I started thinking about what are drawing fundamentals. Like I don't know. Like I've been drawing for many, many years now. And I'm like, I'm okay at drawing. I mostly do charcoal and figure drawing, that kind of stuff. I don't think about fundamentals, consciously think about shadow, perspective. It's something that you learn over time. It's just something that takes time. And once you get to that point, I think then it becomes more fun. Like that's where you need discipline. For that, the first year, 2 years, however long it takes to get you up to speed with those fundamentals, that's where you need discipline to keep you going, because it's not, you can totally enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the tasks and enjoy, okay, I want to get to that level, but you might still be creating art that looks kind of like poop. And
that's going to take some time to get out of.
And you just, I mean, we still create stuff that looks like poop in the beginning.
We just want to show you.
Yeah. But even the pieces that turn out well, they have a poop stage.
Yeah.
And you need to work through that. That's where your discipline goes. Okay, it doesn't matter if I feel like this looks like a pile of trash right now, but I need to get through this.
I think what you're talking about here with like drawing fundamentals is so important, because when I really started to draw here, that was during Animation Workshop. I've been drawing for years before that, but I was trash at it. I could draw portraits of celebrities, and they were pretty decent portraits, but that's just monkey see, monkey do. You're just copying here. Truly learning drawing fundamentals to me wasn't so much understand a 2-point perspective or like specifically how to like render with a pencil or something like that. It was understanding volume, like intuitively understanding volume, where you can just put down some pencil marks on a piece of paper and you understood the volume. You could kind of like, you got the perspective kind of free. And I'm not really talking about the perspective lines here. It was just understanding intuitively the volume. And that is what takes time. You can't just brute force that. That took me 8 months, I think, to intuitively understand. And I was doing that every single day for hours. This is something you can't just do a sprint on. You can't just go, I'm just going to be crunching this for like 10 hours and then you learn it. It's, your mind takes time to develop these things here.
Yeah.
It's not just so much talking about specifically the hours you put in, like the whole 10,000 hours thing. I think is complete bullshit and has absolute no basis in science. But it's just, you just got to spend time to learn these things here. Yeah. Learning fundamentals here is not just so much about the hours, but it's also just so much about how much linear time has passed here. Maybe you need like I think maybe 2-3 hours a day over like every single day over like a week, 2 weeks might be better than like, I don't know, like what would that be, like 20 hours or so in a single day. You gotta space it out, because it takes time for your mind to learn this. It's kind of like with workout as well. You can't just work out for 10 hours a day. No, you gotta do 2 hours for 5 days here, because your mind has to recover, your body has to recover from learning. You gotta sleep, you gotta put it into from your short-term memory to your long-term memory, and this takes a lot of time.
That's really something that I started taking more and more seriously when I got back into language learning. So currently Henning is learning Chinese and I'm learning Japanese.
Good fun.
I actually started learning Japanese the first time when I was around 16. That's where my inner weeb sort of peeked out a little bit. You know, listened to some Japanese music, tried to watch some anime. Wasn't really for me. Then again, when I was around 20, I think. That's when I really started to, because the reason it failed when I was 16 was because I had literally no goal or motivation with learning Japanese. It was like, this was kind of cool, I guess. When I was 20, my girlfriend at the time, she had worked in Japan for a couple months, and we started talking about it. I was like, that sounds really cool. I didn't really know anything about Japan, and I started looking into it. I was like, kanji looks pretty badass. It was like, I would like to learn to write that. That looks cool. I started learning more about the language. I thought, the language sounds pretty nice. Looked at more anime. Still couldn't get into anime, but you know, as a
get into that.
As a proficient weeb nowadays, I have to watch anime. So, but it's like the cramming is really what I started taking seriously, or the not cramming, I should say, where if I sit and I just rep out kanji and vocab for 8 hours a day, then I come back to it again and I do another hour or two. That works for me personally. Yeah. You do something you enjoy, or maybe go for a walk.
Yeah.
But the whole cramming, personally, I don't think it's good for learning. Whether you're learning, language or again becoming an engineer or a character artist, whatever it is. I think your brain has like this. It needs to internalize a lot of the things that you've just learned. Yeah. And if you're trying to cram in a lot in a day, unless you have some sort of Rain Man memory, I think your brain is naturally just gonna latch onto the things that it thinks is most important.
Yeah, and you got to sleep. You actually just got to sleep between the sessions. Like, I can't stress how important that is. There's a lot of research coming out now just on the importance of sleep, and we actually be talking about doing a separate episode on that, because that topic is just so important. But when you are learning, you just gotta rest in between and get proper 8 hours of sleep. I absolutely despise this thing we're seeing online now, where you're like, guys, I didn't sleep. I got like 3 hours, and because I worked so hard. Yeah, cool. You're now going to be inefficient for next week.
It's actually, just as a quick, not to talk too much about the Japanese stuff, because I don't know if it has nothing to do with motivation. Maybe we can get in there.
Yeah, we can get in there. Go for it.
With the sleep specifically, I noticed that. So I'm using an application called Anki for my kanji, and when I sleep properly, 8 hours, like uninterrupted sleep, my retention rate for remembering things in the past week or month is around 90 to 95%. When I don't sleep, that drops by 10%. Consistently. It's consistent.
And that's one night of bad sleep.
That's one night of bad sleep where I get maybe 6 hours.
And now imagine if you have consistent 6 hours. Like, you're just not functional. No. It's like being drunk, and well, how much fun that might be. I mean, it's not really a good long-term strategy for that.
Yeah, no, that I think that is hard. So if you're consistently seeing that it's hard for you to stay motivated because you don't feel like you're learning the things, you can't remember where the bridge button in Maya is or whatever. Maybe it's because you need to also fix your sleep.
Yeah. I've seen it so many times where you're playing a game and you just can't get this bloody thing right. You're just playing the new Donkey Kong game on the Switch. Played it 2 hours. I'm so frustrated. Wake up the next morning, first try.
Yeah.
And like nothing changed there. But your mind just kind of like cemented what was happening there. It put all the knowledge in a more efficient way. It processed it.
I think that's where it's interesting. I think that's a good example of getting an intuitive understanding of something, something silly as it's just a video game.
It's Donkey Kong.
I've had that with Dark Souls as well, where I go to sleep and the next day I do it first try.
Yeah.
Because
every time,
because all of a sudden, instead of, first of all, now you're not filled with rage anymore. That kind of is annoying. But your brain has sort of figured out the patterns after you've been sleeping. That's now stored in your long-term memory. And then once you start doing it again, you're like, that's how I do it.
Yeah. Same with 3D as well. It's really interesting how it works, how you can take Donkey Kong knowledge into 3D.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also interesting with the whole like the discipline as well and language learning, because I mean we can't just talk about 3D here because there are parallels here.
Yeah.
And also with 3D. It's so long ago since we actually learned this.
We don't remember anymore.
It's actually really hard, and it's been like such a long process here. But like specifically for me learning Chinese, which is a ridiculously hard thing to do, it might be one of the hardest things. If I only did that when I felt super inspired, I would never do it. I would have failed a long time ago. I've been doing it for around a year and a half now, and it's like if you can just keep, let's say you're doing like 1 word a day. Then you're up to like 365 a year. If you do 2 words a day, you double that. 3 words a day, and you're like almost 2,000 words in a year. I mean, that's pretty cool. And that's only 3 words a day. And then you have 2,000 a year. Then you have 2,000 a year, and then you do this for 5 years. Suddenly you're up to 10,000 words, and that's just by doing 3 words a day.
Yeah,
like that is not that hard. It's like if you we did the same thing with sculpting as well. During my last year of uni, or last couple of years there, I just sculpted every single day. And that stuff matters. Like this kind of stuff accumulates. In order to learn sculpting specifically, or anything for that matter, you just got to do it a lot. There isn't like the one sculpt where you're now fluent in sculpting or fluent in a language. It takes maybe like 500 sculpts to do it. You just got to get through them. Yeah. You just got to have the discipline to get through them, even if you aren't feeling it that day. You got to spend an hour, 2 hours to sculpting this thing here. And let's say you have a day where you're really not feeling it. Do a simpler study. Take a study of just eyes. Do a monster eye. Do like a tiger, whatever it might be. Just do one specific part and just focus on that. Something where it's not super hard. We had that now with Flip Normals as well, where you have days where you're just not feeling it. And you just got to go, all right, today is a simpler day. It's not a non-zero day. Well, rather, it's not a 0 day where you get nothing done. It's just a day where you just do something simpler. Yeah. Still productive, but it doesn't break your brain.
Yeah, I mean, we had that the other day where the heat in the UK has been intense.
And we have no infrastructure for that whatsoever.
No air conditioning, no cooling, not anything.
No.
So,
sitting shirtless recording.
No video.
No video, thank God.
But, so the heat really got to me, but I still need to get some work done.
Yeah.
So it was just, delegate out pleb tasks to me, where I just go monkey see, monkey do, and then I do that for a couple hours, and then I finish, because that's what I could do that day. Yeah. But it's still about just getting the work done. Yeah. Of course, I think it's important to mention that you will just have days where you feel like a potato, and you take a potato day. Yeah. Or maybe it's a potato week, where you just go, you know what, I'm just going to live in nature for a week now with the squirrels or something. Because it's also getting that break. So it's like, I feel like there are two kinds of breaks in order to stay motivated. It's like, one is you don't try to cram everything into an 8-hour period and just sit there. And the other is you don't try to cram everything into a year. You have to consider your life, your hobbies, family. These are also things that, like it might seem a little, I guess, counterproductive, but you have the whole, I want to be better at sculpting, and I want to be really good at sculpting in 5 years. So I just gotta sit there, discipline, do the work until I'm done. This thing is, you're never done. But you also have to consider what comes after, what's in between, because it's not just, I think motivation could be more things than just, let's say your goal was to become a character artist. You want to work on big VFX films and stuff. But you have your family that can help you stay motivated. They're like, oh, this is really cool. I mean, your family's always going to love what you show them anyway.
Yeah, put your sculpt in the fridge.
Exactly. Like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, hopefully they do.
Yeah, hopefully. Or find people. Not, I wouldn't say to like, it's not like fake. Don't seek out fake motivation.
No.
It's not like, that's why we've raged a lot about the whole posting on Facebook, because it's always just like, oh, this is great. Yeah, this is the best thing I've ever seen, even though it's not. But, that or seeking out people, like-minded people that can help you stay motivated, because you can motivate each other. Yeah. And then you think about, okay, what comes after this character artist's life? Maybe it's family, or maybe you've destroyed your body by sitting in front of a computer for 12 hours a day.
That's going to totally destroy your body.
And you didn't do any fitness at all. Yeah. Like, I've had that issue. I've had massive issues with my back because I chose to not do that. I was just sitting, grinding without any regard for my health. And that affects me now.
I was doing that during uni. I was wearing like gloves on both, like arthritis gloves on both my hand and arms, and I was like 20. And I should have been fit. I was fit as well. I was doing a bunch of workout, but I would work till like 2-3 a.m. and that was insane. Get 2-3 a.m. and get 4 to 6 hours of sleep. And sure, I got a lot of stuff done, but at what cost?
Yeah,
I would much rather be. And I wouldn't even say slower, because if you can't work 10 hours a day, then you can work 5 hours. But that might not be less productive.
No,
it just.
You probably be more efficient doing less work.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, what we're doing with Flip Normals now, we've been going since 2013. We're going for almost 5 full years now.
Wow.
This is a long project. I know we only became super active here in January, but there has been a lot of stuff under the hood. Like building this up here, our YouTube isn't just the only part of this, of Flip Normals. It's a huge part here. So we have essentially been working like 3 to 4 hours every single day after work. And we've had full-time jobs in VFX as character artists. Like this wasn't like we were not working like 2 hours spare time or something. We had to provide for ourselves, and we had to build up our career at the same time. And that has been really, really hard.
That's where I think you have to have that combination of, like, for me, inspiration hasn't played a factor in that.
No.
But the combination of discipline and motivation has.
Yes.
So, like a standard day, so here's a little thing that you might not know. So we have Flip Normals, right? We also have a secret company.
Yeah, more on that later.
So we have 2 companies. And we've had those 2 companies, so Flip Normals for
5 years now.
5 years. And the other one for 2 years now. And then there was a full-time job.
Yes.
So go to work, come in at 9, 10, and leave at 6. You come home, it's 7, you have to eat.
Yeah.
And then it's just, well, we need to get this stuff out. So you start working at 7:30 or 8. Then you do that for a couple hours, 3-4 hours and stuff. And then you go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then you do that again. So it's like, it's kind of this thing of like, it's not the most healthy thing.
No.
But that was our discipline, just told us to keep going because we were so motivated to go full-time on Flip Normals.
Yeah. And we are.
Yeah.
We've been full-time for Flip Normals now for the last month and a half. And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I really can't stress how important the discipline part of that has been. Like, when you've been working like essentially 10, 12-hour days for like 2 years, you're not like, fuck yeah, let's do it. This is awesome. You are like, this is not amazing, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel here. And we could see that if we just keep pushing this, then there is something greater. But if that was my life, doing 3 jobs at the same time for 12-hour days, like that's not sustainable. Like there's also where we had time where we just like, we took a week off each. It's like, now this is Donkey Kong time.
Yeah.
This is Breath of the Wild on the Switch. You're lying in bed as a potato and you're just kind of trying to recover. So I wouldn't really advise anyone to do 3 companies at one time. No. Because that is just ludicrous while you're building your career.
We're trying to give you all these tips and tricks, but the reason is like we've fallen into so many of these pitfalls ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think that's why it's actually really good to talk about, because we've been derps about this as well.
For sure.
Like we've messed up things where it's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done this. Maybe we should approach it this way. Like Henning said with, you know, now it's just video game time. I had 3 weeks where I only played Zelda, like when it came out for the Switch, and that's all I did.
Yeah.
And it was so nice to get that break. And then you come back to it. That's what we talked about. Maybe take a week off.
Yeah.
You come back to it. Now you feel refreshed. Maybe you got a new perspective on something. You're like, oh, okay, now I'm motivated to keep going this way. Yeah. Maybe your motivation changes because of it.
For sure. One thing as well, which you're kind of alluding to here, is that if you want to do great things, let's say you want to work at Blizzard at something, or Pixar or whatever it might be, that's hard to do. Like, that is genuinely a really tricky thing to do. Every single person who's working at Blizzard doing like what you want to do, they've had to sacrifice a lot of things. They're most likely they had to move from their hometown.
Yeah.
That is like the first one, which means that first off, it's going to be harder to see your friends and family. I mean, I'm not from London.
We had to move country.
We had to move country. I've lived in, by the time I was 23, I lived in 3 countries. Like that is honestly hard to do. But it's like if you gotta do it, you gotta do it. You gotta sacrifice certain things here, and that's not just like to sound depressing here. It's just that there are just things you can't have it all. You can't. Most likely, you can't live with your friends and family, have all the spare time in the world, Netflix and chill every single day, stay up to date on all the games, and just really, like, you go to the beach and all these kind of crazy things while you are working at a major company. Like, it requires sacrifice here. But this is also where you gotta have hobbies and you gotta have a life next to it, because otherwise you'll quit Blizzard in 5 years and you're like, well, that wasn't worth it. You worked on a lot of cool stuff. But it's like we talked about in one of our last videos. It does become a job. Yeah. So you got to have a balance here. But I just want to stress this, that you do have to sacrifice something at some point here. I mean, not saying that you gotta just go crazy and sacrifice like a ceremonial goat or something. Don't just do it for no purpose here. Like there is no god which requires the blood of the innocent here. It's just that in order to learn this, let's say you're a beginner and you want to. I know we keep talking about sculpting because that's just our thing, but you want to become a drawer. You want to become an illustrator. That takes time to learn. The whole 10,000 hours thing is bullshit because 10,000 hours, but it just represents a buttload of time.
Yeah.
You just got to spend a crazy amount of time learning it, and your competition will spend just as much time as you are.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, you can't play video games every single day. Maybe you can do it once you reach your goals. Then you can take a step back and play video games and do all that kind of stuff. I hadn't really played video games in like years now. The only reason I could is because I bought a Switch.
Yeah.
And I could it was portable. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I have a friend who sort of, I think, chose to balance his life in a unfortunate way when it came to sort of like the sort of creative path, you know, where instead of splitting his time between the creative stuff and trying to improve, it gradually became more and more consuming media and playing games. And you know, he's quit now. Like he's done. He doesn't want to do this anymore because he didn't. I don't know, maybe it was like 6 or 7 years of trying to do this and repeatedly didn't really get that far. Skills kind of stayed the same, and I think obviously I don't know. Maybe the motivation wasn't there from the beginning, or maybe I don't know. Maybe he just didn't feel it. But I've seen that a lot where people that end up in that position, they're the kind of people that start to gravitate towards finding methods to keep them motivated. And I think if you're trying to find methods to keep you motivated, then maybe you have to rethink why you're doing the thing you're doing. It's like maybe I'll piss more people off, but I hate people. I hate when people make lists. Okay, it's like it's more like you can totally keep a list, but it's the whole list people mentality of like, I have to have a list of my goals, and so I need to know what my goals are. I can't have any long-term goals because when I reach my long-term goal, then I don't know what to do anymore and stuff. And I think if you've reached the point where you're trying to find a method to keep you motivated, maybe either rethink why you're doing the thing you're doing. Maybe you can still, you know, find that motivation and find the original motivation to why you wanted to do this in the beginning. Maybe it was you wanted to become a game artist at a Blizzard or something. But there is also a point where if you're latching onto things and desperately trying to figure out how to stay within the field and motivated, maybe it's not for you.
Yeah. Now, to be clear on lists are awesome. Just use them for the right thing. Yeah, we had actually people here talking about specific lists, because I asked a bunch of people here, and they were like, lists are awesome if you want to, it's internally in a project. One thing we can talk about here is kind of like, you have a huge project here, and how do you do it? It might take like 3 months to do, because big projects are just time consuming. And if you're just going now, oh boy, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you're looking at the entire thing here, that is crazy. I mean, you can't really perceive of all that. Maybe it takes like 300 hours to do. That is a lot of stuff to have in your mind at any one point here.
Yeah, you need to break it down.
You got to break it down here. So we had some people who approached me personally on Twitter saying that what they would do, they would make lists. So this is not to shit on your point, because that's totally valid. It's just that in this case, they would just break the project down into smaller tasks. That's something we keep doing as well.
Yeah,
it's like you're doing like this.
I mean, we have a list right here, you know, about what this video is about.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So if you have this massive project here, let's say you're doing a massive personal piece which has like 30 assets and needs to be rigged and everything. If you're going like, oh shit, that's a lot of stuff. Can't do that. You got to break it down into, okay, how many characters are there? What props do they have? Let's say it's one character and it has 3 props. It's holding a gun and has a helmet. Then you got to just figure out, you just got to start with, okay, model the character, then model a prop, then model helmet, then texture the thing, and then light it, and just be methodical about it. You really need to break bigger projects down into smaller pieces here.
Yeah.
And because it's like what we're talking about. Like if you want to become fluent in a language, or if you want to learn sculpting, there isn't like the event where you learn it. There is not like you wake up and you're like, you see a light bulb, ding, and now you know sculpting. It's a time process. It really just takes time to learn these kind of things. Same with the project as well. You're not just like, well, I guess you do have a point where the project is done, but it's not like you're just grinding and suddenly it becomes done. It's an iterative process where it becomes 5% better for every single asset you're doing. Now this one is done, move on to the next asset, then the next asset, and then at the end of it, you just have a finished product here.
Yeah.
You really just gotta think of it as a bunch of smaller steps. And then, like, you can do anything. If something is really hard, let's say you have a really hard asset to model, like you have a crazy hard gun to model. Well, you're like, oh shit, that's pretty hard. Break it down into the individual pieces. Can you model each individual piece? Can you do that? If you can, then you just assemble the gun from all these individual pieces. And again, if something is too hard, break it into smaller chunks.
Yeah.
That has been maybe the most helpful thing I've done when it comes to approaching bigger tasks here. And that was a really common question as well, which we got when I approached this video here.
I think another way to, because it's not to say that if you don't feel like you have the motivation, you should just quit.
No.
There's a point, obviously, where you might have to start rethinking that. But, you know, there are definitely steps that you can take to boost your motivation. And, you know, we were talking about, one of the things is to keep track of your progress, which I think is really cool. Obviously, if you make a portfolio, that's a surefire way to look back at what you've done. Like, I've always made it a point to never remove stuff from the internet, even like it might be embarrassing or it might be stupid, but it's like, at least then I know it's there. You know, I could just save it to a hard drive or whatever, but those might get lost. I could upload it to Dropbox, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's good to have a record of all the things that I've done. It's cool to look back. And then you can also see, okay, this is where I was a year ago. Oh, maybe I should do the same project and see how I've improved. But don't do the like silly Facebook ones where you actually make a worse one. Because I see that a lot. It's like, oh yeah, I started drawing 10 years ago and now my drawing is actually worse.
Yeah,
but
we see that.
It's more comparing yourself to your former self is an interesting way to try to boost your motivation. Hopefully you've improved in that period. Otherwise, I guess it can be demotivating.
Yeah.
You should have improved if you've just been keeping up consistently, doing the work consistently.
I think that's so important. Like, the moment you start comparing yourself to people on ArtStation and all these crazy places, ArtStation is essentially a representation as a slice of life of the best artists in the world. And they're all represented on the front page there in all the different categories where they are the expert on that. Yeah. You have the best sculptor right next to the best illustrator, next to the best concept artist, next to the best game artist. The thing is, there is always somebody better than you. Always. Just because if you are the best game artist, whatever that might be, you're best sculptor, there is somebody who's better at sculpting a specific part or a different style than you, or let's say you were to become the best, objectively best sculptor. Impossible to do, but let's, for sake of argument, say that. Then you have somebody who's better at character design than you.
Yeah.
There is always somebody who is better than you, and you just gotta accept that. And then stop comparing yourself to other people, because it's just not going to work. It's the whole thing we're talking about in one of the other videos. Like, you feel demotivated because you compare your behind the scenes footage with their highlight reel. Like, you don't know how much time we went into getting those pieces that you're doing. But if you compare yourself to your former self, then you have a fairly objective way of doing it. Like Morten, I've kept all my stuff online. I have a blog which goes back to 2008, I think it is, and it's brutal. I mean, like, the first stuff there is like, it's not great because it's like 10 years ago. Yeah. But it's fine, who cares? The cool thing is you can see progress. And then you can also see that at this point in this year, something changed.
Yeah.
Like, you can see these leaps of improvement here.
Yeah, I had that there was a Danish 3D form that is unfortunately not online anymore. So I've salvaged those pictures. Where I went back and I actually checked it out. And man, I was just a douche. Like, there was this one, I was trying to do a self-portrait, in 3D. And easy. I didn't know anything about 3D at this point. I've probably done it for maybe 3 months or something. And so I posted this picture of a let's call it a head. I guess it had the silhouette of a head.
A potato?
A potato with a nose.
Resembling potato.
But the problem is I didn't know anything about topology. I didn't know anything about the flow of the face, how things were supposed to sit on the face. So I posted this on the forum, and one guy got back to me and was like, yeah, great start. Obviously, he thought it was shit. But he was like, maybe you want to look into, topology and like try to fix, like, get some topology flow around the eyes and the mouth. And my stupid 17-year-old self, or however it was like, yeah, I thought topology was pretty hard, so I'll do that next time. It's like, you idiot. But these are the kind of things where you look back and you think, man, that was pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Let me not do that.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it as well. Not just looking back onto the actual art, but also just looking back at how you were as a person. In this case, that both are valid. Hopefully, you're a bit better than that now in both areas.
Hopefully,
a little bit. One thing I also want to talk about as well is, I think it's really valuable to not do easy things, but to do hard things. It's kind of like the whole thing. I think it's a JFK speech when he's talking about like we go to the moon not because it's easy but because it's hard, because you're conquering a thing here. This is something that we listened to some of Jordan Peterson's rants. He's a very angry man sometimes, but he has some pretty important tidbits here of wisdom, I'd say. One of the things he's been talking about, which I totally agree with, is you really get satisfaction and deep joy in life from doing hard things. It's kind of like what everyone keeps saying about, if I win the lottery, I'm just going to go to the beach and drink a margarita. You're like, all right, cool. How many margaritas are you going to have? You're going to be sitting there for 12 hours a day. You're going to have 6 margaritas or 7 margaritas, and you're going to just be doing this forever. Yes. That's an easy thing to do. That is the easiest thing in the world. You can become fat, and you're just going to be drinking margaritas and be super drunk.
And tanned.
And super tan and get skin cancer like nobody's business. Or you can do something which is actually tricky to do. Like maybe you want to learn a new skill.
Maybe you can go down to the beach. It's like, and you find somewhere in Mexico where you can manufacture your own tequila, set up your own tequila company, so you can drink. I don't know.
Like that would be hard, right?
Yeah, that's
like
super hard.
You will find a lot of joy in that. Like I find a lot of joy in doing what we've been doing here. Like getting to the level we were in our career was really hard to do. It required a lot of work. Like doing character arts for movies, there aren't that many positions there, and that was really fun to do, and it gave me like a deeper sense of, I wouldn't necessarily say purpose, but it just gave me like a deep joy knowing I'd achieved something really hard.
Yeah,
Flip Normals has been incredibly hard because it's been such a marathon.
It's like it's kind of stupid. We give up our career to sit here and talk about stuff for free YouTube videos.
Yeah,
but it's kind of the thing where we've now switched out something. I'm not going to say that doing the effects and doing creatures isn't hard, but it became less hard.
Yes.
Because you get used to the workflow.
Became a habit.
Yeah, and you become used to how to work working with people in a company. We've switched that out now for being full-time with our own thing. Now it's suddenly really hard again.
Yeah, it is.
And,
awesome.
I get an immense joy out of it. Like, I don't know, my motivation is just to keep this growing and get this out to as many people as I can. I can see that we're helping people. We're getting a lot of feedback from everyone now that they're really enjoying the content, and maybe people learn something. Someone recently got in touch with that about I wasn't going to apply for this internship thing, but now I applied and I got it thanks to you guys. So it's like, that's super cool. So my motivation there is just to help people improve and learn.
And that's really hard. I mean, it's really hard to essentially motivate people to get an internship at a certain place. And that gives me a lot of joy.
Yeah.
Doing Chinese is incredibly tricky. If you know any good resource for learning Chinese, please let me know. I can't find any. It's so tricky. But the moment you like listen to a song or you listen to a podcast or something like that, and you just catch a sentence, and you're like, I get this now.
Yeah.
That level of satisfaction is insanely rewarding.
Yeah.
It's so good. But that's because I'm doing something hard. If I was just drinking margaritas all day, I'd be like, cool, another margarita. That was awesome. So it's the same thing as well when you're doing fitness as well, which is hard. I mean, we've both been doing fitness for like the last many years, just staying in shape. But the moment you can see real improvement, maybe you haven't like taken like a super douchey selfie in a while and you haven't like seen progress. But then the moment you do actually see progress, I become so hyped in a whole different level. And the reason I think is because it's hard, not a lot of people can do it.
Yeah.
Because if it was, by definition, it's hard. So it just kind of means that you can now do something that not a lot of people can do, apart from the entire country of China.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the reason I can talk about sort of Japanese and motivation is because it's still a fairly fresh thing, compared to 3D, which I've been doing for so long that it's kind of hard to think back to when did it start and stuff.
I've been doing 3D for longer than I haven't now, pretty much.
Oh, that's
weird. Insane.
But like with Japanese, it's when I was around, when I started the second time when I was around 20, I started because I got like an internship job thing in Japan, and this was during school, and I was gonna go down there for the summer and just work for a little bit. So I thought, it'd be super cool if I could speak the language. This was like, I don't know, with 6 or 7 months of prep or something. And it's kind of back to the drawing guy. Can I learn a language? No, you cannot.
No.
It's too little time. And I didn't really... My motivation wasn't really all there, I think. It was just more of this would be kind of cool. Yeah, so let me try. So obviously I failed horribly. It was hard to keep myself motivated while like reading textbooks and doing kanji. It was like, why do I need this? If I can just speak, I don't need to read.
Yeah.
Whereas with this time, obviously now I have more time because we quit our jobs, but also after working there and being there, I just found out that I really enjoy the country. I really enjoy being there. I just enjoy exploring the country. It's such a huge country with crazy nature, crazy culture, and there's so many fun things to do. So that really motivated me to pick it up again and really go ham on studying the language. So I think finding that one thing that can motivate you, and obviously that thing can change. Like that changes all the time for us with 3D. Then you go like, now I just want to be the best person at sculpting a face.
Yeah.
And then you go like, okay, I think I'm decent now.
Yeah.
And then you develop a new kind of motivation where, maybe I can apply this to the entire body.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to learn texturing now so I can become a better artist in general. So it's like, it's trying to shift those goals to sort of keep ahead of them all the time, I think.
Yeah, I think so. This is something which we had a point which is kind of related to this. It's like make a list of your weaknesses. This is something I did during art school as well. Just what is my biggest weakness?
It can also be a mental list.
It can also be a mental list. Yeah, you don't have to actually write it down, but like just figure out.
Yeah.
Just figure out what is your weakness, and if you keep always improving your weakness, I mean, you're just gonna generally become hopefully a fairly adequate person.
A fairly adequate person that's decent in most ways.
Yes. And then, of course, it's kind of like the debate between should you make the strongest stuff stronger or should you make the weakest stuff stronger? I heard a podcast where we're talking about like football versus or soccer, if you're from across the pond and you're silly. And like football versus basketball here. And in basketball, it was about making the strongest player stronger. But in football, it was about making the weakest player stronger. Just because then there were so many goals in basketball where you just got to get those through. Yeah. But in football, it's like it can be 1-0.
Yeah.
And you just got to make sure that if you have one weak link here, then the other one might get a goal in. So it's kind of like, do you want to become an expert sculptor and only become good at sculpting? That is taking your strongest thing and making that stronger.
Yeah.
Or do you want to take your weakest thing and make that stronger? That could be like, maybe your effects work is really bad, or your lighting and whatnot. And that also just depends on what you want to become. If you want to become the most hotshot sculptor out there, maybe you want to only make the strongest stuff stronger. But if you want to become more a generalist or have an overall sense of get a good art foundation, maybe you want to take the weakest things. That's kind of what I was doing. I improved the base things so I could do most things, but then I took my sculpting and made that stronger and stronger and stronger. But then let's say you do want to only become a sculptor, only a hotshot sculptor. You still got to do the whole what is my weakness here. And that's like, well, I'm not very good at sculpting ears. Sculpt ears. Just do a bunch of them. Sculpting noses, all these kind of things here. And then you can expand from there. And you just generally refine your skill set to a point where you'll become awesome. More than adequate.
I think that's a good point also to staying motivated throughout your career. Is that when you, just back to sculpting, like with Henning, we're talking about the ears, like you wanted to do hard things, not easy things. If you get to a point where you're comfortable, like you're truly comfortable and you feel good about what you do. You know, you actually feel like this is some good stuff. I'm producing good quality work. You can get work. You're hired, all that stuff. Then I think it's time to, like, you know, introspect, look in and figure out what are the areas that you're maybe not so good at, and then go back and reevaluate that and do that. That's going to be uncomfortable again, and then so you'll be in this cycle of I'm not very good at ears or feet or eyes or whatever. Then you get that up to a certain level, and now you're good at 2 things.
Yeah,
and so you can keep improving this all the time.
I think what we're kind of hinting at here is the T-shirt which says "Get out of your comfort zone."
Yeah,
and that is important.
Yeah,
like by doing this, it will just feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and that is kind of the comfort zone. I just don't want to say get out of your comfort zone and leave it at that, because that's like, all right, cool. Now I'm out of my comfort zone. Like, what does that even mean?
You know what someone should do? They should transcribe this entire thing, then put it on the longest picture in the world, and then post it on Facebook.
If you do that, that would be awesome.
That would be pretty awesome. I wonder if you could do like a, because like YouTube has those automatic captions.
Yeah.
If there's a way to export out the captions, paste them into a picture. So if someone from the Discord is listening, this is now a job for you.
Yeah.
That would be funny.
That would be funny. Going back to being uncomfortable. It's fine. We can have a little diversions here. It really is about, like, not about slogans. It's about, like, the true meaning of it. Like what I was saying here, if you are really good at sculpting a face and then you could do sculpt an ear, it's going to be uncomfortable. And that is what going out of comfort zone means. It means that you're doing something and it just kind of, you kind of feel bad about it. You feel insecure.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think is so important here, this is something which has helped me so much, is becoming comfortable with the notion of being uncomfortable here.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like an oxymoron here, but essentially this means that you are accepting that there's going to be a period here where you are not comfortable, of discomfort. I really learned this when I was, a few years ago, I was starting Krav Maga in London, and this is a crazy martial art. Stupid stuff. And the first lesson there, I'd never done martial art before. And I was just thinking that this is terrible. I'm getting beaten up left, right, and center. Yeah. And it feels really uncomfortable because I didn't know how to punch or strike or block or do any of those things. I literally had no idea what I was doing. And everyone else did. Everyone else there was better than me. And I just realized that this is just going to suck for quite some time. And it took a few months, but then after a few months, you get the basics in there. You can kind of start playing around with it. You can jump and block and all these kind of things here.
Yeah.
And that was just from doing something unrelated to CG. This has improved my CG a lot. Because whenever I'm doing, let's say I'm sculpting an ear or a foot or whatnot, something which is kind of hard, and it does feel uncomfortable. I'm not like, all right, screw it. Let's just pack it up here, boys, and let's just leave it. It's more about, all right, this feels pretty bad.
Yeah.
Let's just keep doing it.
I mean, that's what I have with Japanese as well. It's the thing that got me sort of into Japanese, I guess, a lot again. I've been back in Japanese for about 2 or 3 months now. And about a month ago, my approach to Japanese changed. I was doing the standard stuff of textbook, which I hate. Like it's actually, I hate it with a passion, because I think learning language that way just sucks. Yeah. Like, it's not fun. Like, I'm not having fun doing it. No. And when you're not having fun doing something, it can be really hard to motivate yourself. I guess I've gotten to the point now where it's just like, well, I just suck it up.
Just watch anime for a week.
But then I found a channel here on YouTube called Matt vs. Japan. And Matt was talking about, things of he was talking about keeping yourself motivated. I would really, anyone who's interested in motivation, I would actually consider going to Matt vs. Japan's channel, checking it out, regardless of you're interested in Japanese or not, because he talks about a lot of really good things. And one of the things we talked about was he was talking about grinding, which it just clicked with me instantly, where if we change out the fact that we're learning a language, or you're learning a software or a skill, any skill, and you go, think of it like a video game. Like, I think most people here can relate to playing video games, whether it's World of Warcraft or Pokemon. In this example, we're going Pokemon. So this is me. I'm stupid when I play Pokemon. I get, a couple Pokemon, then I go into the grass and I just decimate Pidgeys for a couple of hours. That's grinding.
Get the buffest Rattata in the world.
Exactly. And then your little Rattata can just destroy Onyx. But that's the whole, that sort of, I think, shifted my mindset a lot on it, where it's, when I'm doing Japanese now, I just view it as grinding. Like, it's not that I enjoy per se learning. I'm learning 3,000 kanji.
Yeah.
And it's not that I massively enjoy it. Some parts of it I find is really fun. Learning. Maybe I look up the etymology of a word. I figure out why is this kanji like this. But it's the grind. Yeah. I just know that if I do this, I will level up.
Yeah.
Then, in October, I'm going to Japan for a week with my girlfriend. So it's like, okay, that's kind of like me going to the gym.
Yeah.
Like the Pokemon gym. And I'm challenging a gym leader. And, on Wednesdays, I have a tutor that I try to speak Japanese with. I see that as like a mini challenge as well. So it's like...
That is like a trainer along
the way. Yeah, that's
a
trainer. I meet a trainer along the way. It's uncomfortable. I don't really want to have the battle. Yeah. But now I've been walking in the Pidgey grass for a few hours, and hopefully it's a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like having that mindset on things really changed a lot for me. That made it a lot more enjoyable. At the same time, I also switched out. If you do go to Matt, I'm not going to go into detail here, but if you do go to Matt versus Japan's channel, you'll see sort of like the method that I'm using.
I think that's so important, the whole grinding thing there, because that's applicable to everything. One of the things we want to get across with this video here is that this is not just for CD or whatnot. Like when I'm starting learning Chinese or programming or whatever it might be, or starting a secret company, or all these kind of things. There is a method to it here. It's not just going through it and just trying out random things here. There is a clear method to it now. Like when I'm going to be starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now in a few hours. First session, yay! So whenever you guys listen to this, I've probably been beaten to a pulp.
Yeah, next episode it'll probably just be me.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's gonna be an approach to it, like specifically what you're gonna be doing. I don't know, but it's more about you got to be grinding, got to be doing a lot.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be beaten to a pulp. It's gonna be really uncomfortable, and so what? So what if it's uncomfortable? Every single person there is gonna be better than me in a few hours.
Yeah,
and I know that. And it's okay. I'm not nervous about it or anything, because that's just what's going to happen. Because we have an approach to this. Turns out, start learning CG, you can learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the same approach here.
Yeah.
Like there is actually an underlying thing here to it, through discipline and through having a clear goal of why you're doing it. So I think we're kind of reaching the end of this now.
Yeah.
Do you have any crazy stuff you want to talk about? Any...
I think we've covered a lot of things, and I hope this is I hope this can help people.
So then this has been exactly an hour right now.
Yes. Okay, there we go. Now we can close.
Yeah. Phew. So just to sum it up, though, for me, when it comes to discipline or to motivation and discipline, all this, it's really about discipline. It's really about consistent work. It doesn't have to be. It's not a sprint. It's not where you just running for like crazy to learn whatever it is you're running it or doing. It's not about sculpting in ZBrush for 15 hours a day. It's about discipline and a slow but consistent effort here, where you hopefully you have a resemblance of life outside.
Yeah.
Where you get enough sleep. You always get enough sleep. You never stop that, because then everything goes off the rails. And you just keep being consistent with it. And then get long-term goals as well, like Morten was saying. Learning Japanese is one of the reasons is going to Japan, maybe living in Japan. A clear underlying thing here. And then I'm also combining this with like bursts of energy as well. Like inspiration is important. But one of the key problems I keep seeing is that people rely on bursts of inspiration.
Yeah.
Bursts of inspiration is...
I'll go to ArtStation. Oh, I'll watch the show. Okay, now I'm motivated again.
Exactly. You're like... You're relying on just like... this very fickle inspiration to be able to do a really hard task here. Most things you're doing is like a 1,000-step journey. Like you just gotta take. That actually doesn't sound like a very hard journey at all. It's actually a million-step journey.
10,000 steps for 10,000 hours.
Yes,
with your lists,
with your T-shirt slogans.
Oh yeah.
But most things just takes a lot of time to do. They are incredibly time-consuming, and you just gotta accept that it's going to take a long time. You're going to accept that it's going to be really hard, and you're also going to accept that once you do it, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Once you can like play around with ZBrush or your Japanese or whatever it might be, it's going to be fantastic. So break big project into smaller chunks. Have clear milestones along the way as well.
I think milestones are super important. It's actually something I think
Let's talk about that real quick.
Didn't really touch upon, but milestones is like it's a mini goal for me. Yeah. I guess that it's a goal post, and it's like I want to work towards this thing. Once I reach this thing, then I can start the next milestone that I have. So I think planning out those milestones can be really important to keep ahead, so you don't reach. That's where you don't reach one of your goals and think, shit, what do I do now?
Yeah.
You know, it's...
Or you never reach your goal.
Yeah,
because it's too hard.
Yeah, so it's like breaking that. It's like breaking your motivation into smaller projects as well can also really help you stay motivated.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if I were to go to the gym across here now, to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and try to fight the biggest and baddest dude there, I would get... I would die. He would literally kill me in around 4 seconds. Like, that's not a good way of doing it. Or if you're trying to lift weights, you're trying to lift 200 kilos first time, you can't do it. That might be your end goal, to be the best at something. But you got to have milestones along the way as well. Yeah. If your goal is to become an artist at Blizzard, you can't just be, all right, start now, open Maya, open ZBrush, go. Yeah. You got to have something like, oh, maybe you did a really cool piece. You get maybe one of the goals is you get featured on ArtStation. You get a 3D Total Excellence Award. Your mom put your sculpt in the fridge. Yeah. You get 100 likes on Facebook. Whatever silly things it might be. Just have clear milestones, because otherwise you are just going to be grinding indefinitely.
Yeah, and I think the whole thing about being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and do the hard things. Do the things you suck at, and make sure to improve those along the way, so that you don't like forget what it is to stay motivated.
And remember to take breaks, guys.
Yeah,
play some Pokemon.
Play some Pokemon.
Actually, take breaks. Go to nature. We usually have like one walk a day, just trying to go in a little bit into a forest, or like just getting some slight nature or something.
And we were doing that even when we were working in a studio. I think it's important. You know, we'd go for a 20-minute walk or something. Just go outside. And not look at your screen all day. Yeah. Like, don't look at nature on your screen.
No,
for example.
No. So like, when everyone else took smoke breaks, we took walk breaks.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a bit weird because I feel some people were like, "Oh, you're taking breaks." No, everyone else they're down in a cafe drinking coffee all the time.
Yeah.
We took a walk.
We just went outside the building.
Yeah. Can you walk outside the building? Turns out you can. What are you gonna do?
So I really hope this video hasn't turned into the thing I hate the most in the world, which is like pseudo-motivational stuff. But I feel like we've tried to get our points across, and I hope it's not pseudo-motivational bullshit.
I mean, it works for us at least.
Yeah.
So it's... we've been really trying this. We've been really trying here to do the best job we can.
Yeah.
I'd be very curious to hear if there's anything here in this video which has been particularly useful to you guys.
Yeah, if you are find that you can stay motivated other ways, something we can add to this.
We'd love to hear that, because like Morgan was saying, there are things like suddenly like the Pidgey grinding metaphor, which is just like ding. There might be in maybe this entire video there is one thing which is useful.
Yeah,
that's often what I have when I'm going through like all my business books and stuff. There is one useful thing. Throw out the entire thing.
TLDR, watch this entire video.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much for your attention for an hour.
Oh yeah, I think that's the longest video we've ever done.
Yeah, probably. Now go out in the sunlight.
Yeah, we're gonna go outside now, and we're gonna die out there. Yeah. God, it's gonna be so warm. Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, we're gonna keep it maybe not this long in the future, but make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
No, thanks, guys.